Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically atomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey, and welcome to the Cosmic Oracle Show. We're coming to you live from Los Angeles, Sacramento, and Louisiana. And it's Tuesday, March 28th, and 2017, and we're in for a really, really wonderful show. We have a wonderful guest. Laurie McDonald will be up with us shortly. She is a hypnotherapist and a researcher and quite an extraordinary woman who's really done a tremendous amount of work and research in the field of extraterrestrials and UFOs and abduction, and so she will just thrill you today with some of her stories. I've talked with her briefly, Patrick and I, before the show, and you're in for a real treat today. And you'll learn so much. That's the fun thing about connecting with different hosts on the show and different people that come on the show, that we have a really good time, but yet we're able to connect some dots and explore some territories in a easy, safe, and fun way. So if you're tuning in today for the first time, we have a lot of first-time listeners, and part of the Cosmic Oracle Show is dedicated to people who've had experiences, extraordinary experiences, and this is a safe place where you can call in and talk about those experiences. And we have Laurie McDonald, our hypnotherapist, on standby today too, so she'll be able to talk with you about these experiences. And you can just call in at our number. Our call-in number is 337-335-0085. And we have our producer here, Patrick English. How you doing, Patrick?
I'm fine, Barbara. I'm sorry, I got a Purolene in my mouth.
A what?
Breakfast. So it's not just straight coffee into my stomach.
Well, we were talking about that earlier. I had a cup of the morning goddess. Right. Yeah.
That's fine. Fine, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing great. Okay. And so how are we doing on donations, Patrick? Because let's do our regular check-in here.
Yeah, well, let's see. I'll tell you in just a sec. We are at $31.95, and we need $2,600. So we're $5 shy of being $600 ahead.
We have never done that. I don't think we've done that.
It's
before.
Rare. It's wonderful.
It's awesome. That is so amazing. Wow. I'm just kind of a little bit blown away. Thank you, everyone who has donated this month, for your generosity, because we are everyone is a volunteer station and no one gets paid for anything. We just are on to get the truth out and to have programs that we have total freedom to say whatever we want and about whatever subject pretty much that we want to. And we're here because of you and your support. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for your generous donations this month for Revolution Radio and keeping us the #1 listener and user-supported station on the web. Wow, I'm just so excited because Patrick, we've been trying this for, I know you and I've been together for 2 years now. I think this is the first time that's ever happened.
Well, not really the first, but this is rather signal. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
pointer in a good direction.
Well, I'd like to bring Laurie on and talk about. I'd like to give you a little bit of background about her. Laurie McDonald is a clinical hypnotherapist, and she is an abduction researcher, and she is one of 27 regression therapists listed on the MUFON a mental health referral list for abduction regression. She is a consultant to the research committee FREE. You've heard me talk about FREE, the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. She's on the board of directors for the organization of OPUS, which is an organization for paranormal understanding and support. And she is the founder of the Sacramento Alien Abduction and Contactee Support Group, which is one of California's largest UFO and abduction groups, and happens to be my own hometown where I grew up and went to high school and junior school and junior high and high school. So I know exactly the area where Laurie does her work. She has been the facilitator of a number of experiencer events and is a lifelong experiencer herself. Her company, True You Hypnotherapy, and that's trueyouhypnotherapy.com, has been the winner of Sacramento's Best of 3 years running by promoting mind body integration through one on one sessions, empowerment workshops, experiencer group events, and she just came back from Hawaii Women's Empowerment Spiritual Retreat. Aloha!
Aloha.
And so, thanks for coming on and talking about your extraterrestrial experiences and how that was a catalyst for expanding your consciousness and then helping you, and then you helping others who have had these experiences as well. So, I was thinking maybe we just start from the very beginning. I know we'll peel back the layers like in a book, right? And so, when did you start having experiences yourself? Would you want to talk a little bit about that and of how that happens? So that, I mean, it's not every day you wake up and say, I want to be a hypnotherapist. There had to be some stories that led up to uh, using this as your, a lifelong career that you've had and helped so many people.
Well, it's funny, even as a young girl, people used to call me Dr. Laurie. They would say that because it would be like, is the doctor in, Lucy from Peanuts? Because I'd always, was sympathetic and had a solution when a person came to me. So it's kind of funny. And in fact, I think it's been my mission in life to be sort of in service of humanity. I've always kind of felt like we're in a transitional period right now, and people seem to be more chaotic and stressed out than necessary. But I also understand that as we're sort of moving perhaps through the ascension process, that the core belief system gets shaken up a little bit and people are unnerved. So I find that I'm able to bridge that gap by offering understanding, information, and support so that they can come into a higher way of viewing a situation, feeling more empowered, and integrating the aspects of either extraterrestrial phenomena or paranormal activity into their life easily.
Cool.
Yeah, so I've always felt that it's really difficult for people to come forward and to say, hey, I've had a UFO experience, or hey, I saw an alien. Even I saw a ghost makes it difficult. People, as soon as you begin to step out of the norm, other people will police you back into a way of thinking. And that's very detrimental to the unfolding of a person. It really suppresses their natural growth into spirituality, because I believe that all of the paranormal activities, as well as the entire UFO phenomena, is a wake-up call. It isn't to spend our time, like a dog chasing their tail, trying to figure out what the round craft or the cigar-shaped craft or the triangular craft means or where they're from. I think that at this stage, it's just more important to accept the fact that perhaps they exist, and then that we can accept the fact that there is a non-human presence, not only on the planet, but off the planet. And when we begin to sort of relax into that idea, we move into an expanded consciousness. So for me, it really started probably at around 5 years old. How are we doing there, Barbara?
Barbara, are you with us? Barbara, are you on mute? Because generally,
are we okay now?
Yeah.
I just went to a faraway planet. I just came back. I'm centered now. I took my out breath and no, just kidding. We're back. So
yeah.
Okay, so Laurie, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I kind of have an idea when I lost you, but I was
at the 5 years, when you were 5 years old.
Yeah,
your first experience.
I think it was probably roughly that age, and even though prior to that, under 5 years old, I was often found in the backyard. Late at night, sort of head tilted back, eyes would be wide and intent on the sky. And I felt no fear at all, but I sensed things. I sensed like this huge, sort of magnificent presence. I felt as if it was somebody in the sky. I could feel that. And so I'd always go out there at nighttime. But then when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I remember waking up again in the middle of the night and looking out the bedroom window. And I saw 2 small extraterrestrials sort of on either side of my older brother, and walking him down the driveway. And across the street, sort of on a kitty corner, was a little field. And I wanted to look and see what was in the field, but I heard a voice behind me say, "Step back from the window." And I just instantly responded and took a giant step back, which was on my bed, because I had to be standing on the bed to look out the window. I took a giant step back on my bed, sort of crouched away from the window, and felt like this other energy in my room. And when I looked at it, it looked like the silhouette in a very sort of soft but bright, almost fluorescent violet color silhouette of the entities that told me to step back from the window. So I'm not sure exactly what that was all about, but now, of course, in retrospect, I've had encounters with both of those particular entities, and feel that one might be extraterrestrial, that would be the gray ET, and that the other one seemed most definitely to be a celestial being. The one that I question, as far as the gray, I wonder just, even though everybody feels that they're from either the Orion or the Lyrian star system, and there's even a historical reference to them having some type of war, almost civil, and the Greys themselves splitting off, some being very regimented and with the abduction phenomena, and others not so much. But me now, after all of these years and being a lifelong experience, my emotional body or my energy tells me there's something wrong with the gray scenario. There's something doesn't add up. I think that it might be a program, perhaps a psyops through radionics, microwave, or psychotronic warfare. But I'm thinking that either there's a very strong, our own military presence with the gray, or that our own people manufactured such entities. I really don't know, but there's something inside of me that is changing what I previously believed is about them, to incorporating more of a government association with them, which changes everything. I mean, because then we're, vastly manipulated.
Yeah, does that take out the fear or does that make it worse, right?
For me, it makes it
Yeah.
exponentially worse.
Yeah.
Because it's by way of deception.
Yeah.
And with that, the trust factor is been removed. So
And
anything that's
no
by way of
self-respect.
right. Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. So when we look at a situation like that where we see manipulation, and then even some of what the experiencers have told me, where the ATs would tell them, we're your real family, telling these to small children, we're your real family. Well, planting that seed in a child's mind about their parents not really being their parents is criminal. It's definitely an act against the betterment of that child. It's creating all sorts of feelings that would be separate from the nuclear family. And so when I hear about stories like that, one, it angers me. But so I think that the Greys just might be part of some type of hybridization program. But I think that the people doing a lot of those experiments just might very well be our own shadow government.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a catch and tag and release sort of a thing.
Well, not so sure about that. We know that in the Eisenhower administration, that he apparently had some type of face-to-face meeting with some extraterrestrials, but they were supposedly the tall whites. But we know there's a hierarchy. We know that the short grays work for the tall grays, that even the smaller blues, the more squatter ones, seem to report to the grays. We know certain things. We can create, a very limited psychological profile of certain extraterrestrial races just based on the amount of firsthand experience or reports. But we see that there is a type of hierarchy. And so even the tall whites who are reportedly on the Indian Springs Reserve are involved in the abduction phenomena with the grays because they're often identified in the background. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to know who to trust. So I think that a protocol is necessary in understanding what an extraterrestrial contact might mean to an individual. So there are certain ways that we have to view the contact, how they are approached. If you're just taken without permission in your conscious mind, then that's a problem. If they don't refer to you by your name, that's a problem. And interestingly, I guess it was last month, I was at the Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo, and I was on the UFO panel with Whitley Strieber and other people, and Linda Moulton Howe and Richard Dolan, and Whitley is sitting beside me, and he says, every time they never called me by name, and they always would just, do what they wanted. And so when I spoke next, I was like, well, the ETs that I do feel it's appropriate to interact with always call me by my name. That's the first thing I hear is my name.
Well, that would be out of self-respect, and it's empowering to both. Do they give you a name that you can call them, or?
Well, not really. There's not really a name like that, but I do identify those with different energies. Mm-hmm. I can feel, whether it's sort of a masculine or a feminine energy, but I think the name thing is really, us. It's like kind of what we need.
Yeah, this is how we do it on Earth, right? You're in our sphere, so when in Rome, this is how we do it.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate them asking questions like, am I afraid? Mm-hmm. Do I want to go? That's the sort of questions that we need to be hearing, not all of a sudden, I'm being floated out the window or through a door or up onto a UFO and then experiments are taking place. Now that's crimes against humanity. And when things like this are being reported across the world, we have to really take a good look at it and decide what are we going to do about it, But we have to be able to legitimize the experience first. And I think in doing so, we have to create a proper protocol.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that way it can work for everyone that way too. And it helps just open the doors for the next steps, whatever those, in a positive way.
Right. So, I mean, there's a difference between being told that you've made a soul contract and having conscious recollection. I mean, I'm not a soul attorney, but if a ET has said to me that, I don't remember, but my soul created a contract and allowed this type of experimentation and extraction of DNA, I would say, well, let me have a look at that contract. Mm-hmm. Let me review that. Let me create an addendum to that contract, or let me say that this contract is void, because it's only with your conscious and subconscious mind being on the same page that you can go forward with that type of a contract. So I think, again, that's a manipulation. That's a red flag.
Mm-hmm. And you would go with your feeling on that. Would you feel fear? Would you, fear as opposed to feeling grace?
Right. And I didn't feel any fear. I've never felt any fear with the ETs except for one occasion. And that was when I was just about 30 or 31. And after doing like a ton of emotional clearing, I had done all my work. I've been meditating already for a decade at least. And I was proactive in my own exploration of self-development. And I felt really good. I'm going to tell you the truth, Barbara. I felt great. I felt at peace. I felt like I had an understanding of how the world and the universe reacted. I had sort of discarded religion in my life and felt that, hey, you know what? I don't need an administration or a minister to come between me and what I think is God. And all the hang-ups associated with that, I kind of just felt this surge of freedom. So here I am, completely free and happy and content, probably for the first time in my life at that level. And I walk into my bedroom, load of laundry on my hip, the kids are in bed, and, I begin to go through the motions and sit down on the bed, and all of a sudden, seriously, my room lit up in this white flash of light. So I'm going to have to investigate what white flashes of light mean. I'm thinking as this happens. And
what's with the white light, okay?
Sometimes kind of turn off the researcher part and just go with it, right? But,
yeah. There's something in that white light, let me tell you.
Well, this time what happened was two gray aliens appeared about 24 inches away from me.
Wow.
They were right there, right in front of me, and
in 3D, loud and clear.
Total 3D, as solid as the lamp on my night table. Mm-hmm. And I looked them directly into the eye and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing to me?" And I saw them tilt their heads towards each other as if they communicated over my head, and which I'm sure they did. And then the next thing I know, there's another sort of burst of light, and then like a taller gray appeared, kind of looked at me, and the energy that I got was that it was annoyed. It was annoyed because here I am, fully conscious. I'm not going along with the program. I'm not in that hypnoglamic or paralyzed state that they like to do their work in. I'm sitting up, looking at them, and still, so what? Now there's a taller one. I'm pretty cool. I'm rolling with it. I'm pretty open-minded. and I'm not fear-based naturally. So
you're neutral.
Pretty neutral, right? And open to any type of communication that might lead to something interesting. So it took a step towards me, and I noticed that in its really freakish hands, okay, that started to send a chill in me. I don't know why, but it did. It stepped forward, and probably because in the hand was like a needle about the length of a chopstick, and it was coming right towards sort of my left ovary area on my abdomen. And I did go into full fight mode and fought. I mean, I know it was fight or flight, and I was totally fighting and kicking, screamed. I threw punches. I whited out. I lost consciousness. When I came to, I was in absolutely excruciating pain. The lower left, I had gone, had to see the doctor to find out that I had all of a sudden had a ruptured hernia. I'd torn the muscle in my lower left abdomen, fighting, and needed surgery, which I later got with a mesh implant to hold that muscle back into place. So the Greys, I've learned, really could care less about our emotional energy, that they are just agenda-oriented. They have a job to do, and no different than a very cold scientist would approach the extraction of genetics from a lab rat. So didn't really appreciate that at all, and became, I actually started to seek help and talk to some other people, and I realized that I did have the power to prevent and stop those types of encounters. And frankly, I've never had another one.
You know, I'm thinking if you had the energy and the power to do that, then we all have the power to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's understanding your rights and vocalizing them, number one. This is what happens in the abduction phenomena aspect. People become compliant and go along with the extraterrestrials because they, in my opinion, are having their delta and their theta brain waves manipulated so that they simulate the sleep state. So people aren't sure if they're dreaming or not. But we become completely, it's like they're hacking the unconscious mind. So you've seen people maybe drink too much and white or black out, but they go on all night partying, maybe singing karaoke, maybe even catching an Uber home, don't know how they got there, don't remember anything they did. They're operating on the unconscious level. I think that the extraterrestrials can tap or hack our unconscious mind and allow us to become compliant. It's only when we're fully lucid that we're able to make a decision that is in our highest interest. Otherwise, they just have us going along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, it's like be in the body, own the body, have responsibility with the body. If you check out, you don't know who's checking in. It's kind of,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have a well-grounded energy. And I really think the best way to do that is to move through a empowerment program so that you have awareness of self and then acceptance of self and eventually self-mastery. Self-mastery is being able to work in the mind body of yourself and understanding what it is. And then we have what I like to call self-actualization, the ability to live in the world and live the life that you choose to live. You are, in fact, the driver of this car. And so the empowerment process is important absolutely for all aspects of life, but in particularly this particular phenomena.
Mm-hmm. So it can be something that's added to your life, not your whole entire life, because it can encompass when you go on it, as you have an experience, an extraordinary experience, and you try to work it into your world or the before world, and then transition all that information. And then sometimes, it can take years to do that. And that's why I believe your hypnotherapy is a real vital uh, part of the helping that transition. And then also you're getting to a group.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, as much support as possible. Organizations such as Opus that you mentioned earlier, and by the way, now earlier this month I was elected president of Opus. So
Awesome.
I'm very,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. I'm really honored and proud to run this amazing nonprofit organization. It's been around for a long time, and certainly their mission is to offer support on all types of levels. We have attorneys and doctors, surgeons, everyone there to help you through this experience, whether it's extraterrestrial or just paranormal. Other groups like the Sacramento Alien Abduction, that monthly support group really is so entirely beneficial to people who have this forum, an opportunity, a community to connect within where they feel support and love. So yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to just say, Barbara, you're absolutely right in how you look at the phenomena, because it can take over your life because the emotions run so high. So one of the most important things to remember is that these are circumstances of your life and not your life. And you can apply that to anything happening in your life. Those are circumstances of your life, not your life. Your life is what you live, who you love. And on your deathbed, you're not going to, say, oh boy, this and this happened. You're going to be, it's the lives you touched. So understanding that the phenomena is just a circumstance of your life and not your life, you could be able to be more well-grounded in understanding it. I've seen people go to the far side and feel so special and honored, and like as if their DNA is the only DNA that is going to save this entire extraterrestrial race. And I'm like, whoa, hang on, now reel that in a little bit, and let's look at it, and see if this makes sense. We have to look at it logically. So why would such an advanced species require when so many of them refer to us as savage beings, why would they require our savage being DNA? So I think that when you create this emotional state in the mind where they're very special, and I'm not saying they're not special, they can be special in their own way, but
hey, we're all special, Laurie.
Yes, we're all special. Okay? But just because somebody tells you you're special and chosen, it doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want to you.
Well, that's a manipulation. That's very different.
Right. Then that's exactly right. So, of course, we're all special. But yeah, we really have to have a look at, how the situation unfolds. And the more and more research I do, I've actually finished my first book, The Extraterrestrial Interference, and just prior to wanting to release it, as I'm rereading it, I already feel different about some of the things that I have written. And so I'm at that kind of stage where I pull it back, rewrite those chapters, or let it go and add to it later. But see, I guess it really is an evolution of understanding.
It is. And if you start at 5 years old and now you're a mother, and I understand a grandmother, I mean, you have some wisdom that you have developed a relationship with these beings throughout your whole life. And so if we can take that wisdom and put it together in a cohesive way to use it, a program or a tool that we can pass on to the next generation, so we don't have to start over every time from base.
Right. Yes. And, I understand that the phenomena is generational. We see it not only with contactees, but also with abduction. So when I was 50 years old, I got a phone call from Canada, and I was just had finished doing a TV show, and that month or something, and I answered the phone, and they're like, "Is this Laurie McDonald?" And I'm like, "Yes." And she said, "Hi, I'm your mother." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I don't have a mother." And she's like, "I'm your mom." And I really, I'd seen her in my youth, but never had a relationship with her and never was raised by her. And you wouldn't recognize her in a lineup, So she says there's I really need to tell you the story of your birth. I can't believe what you do for a living. I'm just blown away here. And if you...
The Studio B calling me. I don't know why. Shouldn't be. Let me hang on.
Just kidding.
I think we're back now. We're back. I my computer again. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, guys,
So,
go ahead.
all right. Thanks, Laurie. And so, so we're talking about, you get a phone call out of the blue when you're 50 years old from your mother.
From my birth mom, yeah. And she said,
my gosh. So you
like,
were adopted, I assume, so.
Well, I was put up for adoption. I was never adopted, so.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're a free being.
Apparently, I am a free being. So no, I lived with my grandma for a little bit. I lived with my dad and some different stepmothers, but I spent a lot of time in the children's aid as well, going through the foster care system, where most of that time I felt like a social worker to the other kids, because for some reason I was able to understand the circumstances without being too negatively affected by them, and knew that I'd grow up one day. So yes, so at 50 years old, I'd finished the show and get this call, and she's like, "I'm your birth mom, and I really need to tell you the story of your birth and what happened." And after calling my husband over, putting the phone on speaker, she said, "Okay, so back in 1963, I was pregnant, and for the entire 9 months of the pregnancy, she felt like there were two little entities that would take her, two little extraterrestrials, and they would do all types of experiments on her. This happened for the whole time, and she was very distressed by it. There wasn't any support groups. There wasn't an Opus. There wasn't a MUFON. There wasn't anything for her to get any help at all. So she told her doctors and the OBGYNs, she told her husband, and they all really shut her down hard. They told her that she needed to stop talking about that, or for sure she was going to go into the psych ward. So she didn't really talk about it. Then when she was 9 months pregnant, one morning she was sitting in the backyard on a lounge chair, and just right away she said two ETs showed up on either side of her. And then she felt like she was sort of levitated, or felt like she was floating through the apple orchard. She felt at that time there was a real disorientation with time. Time was moving weird as she moved through the orchard. And right there in the center of the orchard, where the tractors turn for the harvest, above that, floating in the air, hovering, was a UFO. Upon seeing the UFO, she was in the UFO. She said that it seemed so much larger than it appeared on the outside. And this also created some type of disorientation in her, like she wasn't seeing what she was seeing, and she was having a hard time processing the information as usual. Well, they had laid her down on a bed, she said. And I asked her, well, what kind of bed? And she said, with her 50s and 60s mentality, she said, well, it looked just like an ironing board without the pad on it. I said, okay. So I wrote down metal ironing board. So she said they checked on her baby, and she kept telling them she was upset. She was getting scared, terrified, really. And they told her not to worry, that they weren't interested in her. They were only interested in her baby. And this actually didn't calm her down. It made her a little bit more upset. So she remembers a little bit later on, during some of the examinations that they were doing to her, she heard a large popping sound in her head. She described it as the Christmas crackers that you pull before dinner, and you pull them and they make a popping sound and little streamers come out. So she said she heard that pop and became disoriented again. And then after several other more graphic exams that she has total recollection of, she wakes up outside on the lawn near the door, but not close enough for them to hear her calling for help. She is bleeding both vaginally and from the nose, and she is in full-on labor. Nobody hears her. Her husband doesn't hear her. The neighbor who was getting ready to leave for work, this is in the morning on the 19th of September, 1963, they took her. He roused the household and woke up the father and took her to the hospital, and she gave birth to me there, which she had a very difficult time bonding with. She said I was very blue-eyed, and my mom and dad are short, black-haired, brown-eyed people. I know you saw my profile picture, so you know I am not. And so she couldn't breastfeed, and I wouldn't take the cow's milk, and I had some issues. It made it very hard for her. Plus, I constantly triggered her memory of these experiences. And when she tried to tell the doctors once again about it, they shut her down, and she shut me down, I guess. So she kept it secret for 50 years. When she saw that I was on the Support Coalition as well as the Scientific Research Committee for Free, she contacted me. So at the time, I was in the process of doing a TV show called Experiencers, and it's a reality TV show. They send out an investigation team to investigate a UFO or an abduction, and if the abductee requires hypnotherapy, then I would be called in to do that. So I said to the producer, Jim OConnell, I said, hey, Jim, meet my mother. I gave her the phone number, and they got a hold of each other, and she was in Canada, and they talked all summer long about her coming on the show and having that moment of freedom to speak her truth without fear of ridicule, without embarrassment, without anything like she had suffered. And so we arranged for this to happen. It was very exciting for me, and getting the next call from Canada. And it's the hospital calling there, and they told me to immediately leave the United States, come back to Canada, because my mother had suffered a major brain aneurysm followed by a stroke, and that her chances of survival are limited. So I went immediately, had a car waiting for me at the Detroit International Airport, took me over the border directly into the hospital, and the surgeon wasn't entirely optimistic, and she survived this amazing surgery, and thank God for the surgeon. He coiled her brain, and she's been in speech therapy. So Jim and I were shaking our heads over, this, and it was tragic situation, because the stroke left her unable to articulate her thoughts. Not her thoughts. She can think, but she can't speak. Her words are mixed up. So she has been in speech therapy, and we were going ahead with the show, and obviously postponing any involvement that she had, and praying for good recovery. So next thing I see, Jim had gone ahead and posted in the promo for the TV show Experiencers, and it was a great promo. And then 7 days later, the headline in the newspaper read, TV show Experiencer Jim OConnell mysteriously died in his sleep. So I was shocked by this, shocked that he wasn't sick, to my knowledge. We didn't understand that. He had this great, relationship with my mom. He knew her better than me by the end of that first summer. And now he's gone, and she still can't talk. And I try to stay optimistic and positive, and try to figure out these things and go, well, I can really go down the rabbit hole here, but I choose not to just want to move forward and continue doing my work to the best of my ability. So as you know, in November, I'll be a part of the Awaken Empowerment Conference in Detroit, Michigan, where I will be bringing my mother, who's from Windsor, Ontario, just a mile over the border there, to come. So this will be, after 4 years, her opportunity now to come forward and say, hey, yeah, as much as she can, acknowledge her experience and stand up to own it. So I'm proud of her for wanting to do that after, she might have been scared away after everything she's been through. She suffers the stroke and the obviously the brain aneurysm, and then our producer really, quote unquote, mysteriously dies in his sleep. And she's still willing to come forward and do that. And it hasn't really been an easy road. Sometimes the more we come out with specific information, or the harder we work on our job to speak with full truth and integrity, we often get knocked down a little bit. During that process, my bank account was hacked and quite a bit of money was taken and used, and I did get it all back. It's just, again, low-level harassment. It was shortly followed by the windows of my van being shot out with a low-caliber handgun. Next weekend, the next vehicle was damaged. The following weekend, my car, I laugh. They took a ketchup and put a big circle around on the windshield by the driver's seat with an X through it. I was like, what? Wow. So we deal with that sort of stuff, and it's just ridiculous, but it doesn't really stop any of the researchers or anybody from doing their job. But I will say that, Barbara, to get that phone call from my mom, it later made me, I had no idea of her experiences, and I've been doing this my entire life, and I had no idea of her experiences at all. And to think of all of the support groups that I've offered free of charge. I don't charge for them. I feel that it's a gift, and a gift is free. So I kind of, on some level, have been doing them for people just like her.
Yeah, your whole life. And that she finally gets to have, that's where you get your warrior endurance and strength, right? It runs in that DNA that is her in you. And
we're hoping we share the DNA. I had to ask her. I had to say, okay, at the end of the conversation. And I said, what are you telling me here? That they were involved a whole 9 months, right up into the day I was born. I said, what are you trying to tell me here? And she said, well, I just can't believe that I gave birth to such an enlightened being. And I'll be honest, there are big part of me that wished she would have said daughter. It would have been nice of her to say daughter, but she referred to me as a being.
But maybe that's out of respect, though, right? Because to fit you in her paradigm would be a struggle, right?
Yeah, I think that could possibly be true. So, but, it would have been nice to hear daughter, but I guess to be referred to as a being, I am a human being, so she's technically correct.
Well, maybe on the show, it's a process, right? It's this whole process of the two of you, and your story is really quite extraordinary to hear. I've never heard of a story quite like this, and to see what she has went through, and then to see what you've gone through, and then to see you two together on stage and share your experiences together is going to be quite dynamic, and I would think healing and cathartic for everybody who's in your presence there.
I certainly hope so. It'll be, I'm hoping that she'll be strong and healthy enough to do this. I'm feeling that she will. But so, the researcher part of me was like, okay, So I immediately contacted Paul Hellyer, the former Defense Minister of Canada. I wanted reports of sightings from January 1963 to the end of September 1963. I began to triangulate reports from the Detroit metro area through Windsor, London, and found that there was this amazing increase of UFO activity during that time. So I actually was then contacted Mike Cleland. He's the author of The Messengers, and he writes a book called Owl's Synchronicity and the UFO Abduction. And the UFO Abductee, I mean, that's the proper title. So he is from that area. He put me in touch with somebody else, and sure enough, there was like this triangle that we created on the map, I created on the map of abductions. So I find it really interesting, that we see all of these other things associated with the abduction phenomena, owls for one, different synchronicities. And so I had shared an owl story with him. I had told him that when my son was about 5.5-ish, I was sitting outside on our front lawn here in Sacramento.
We're getting ready for a break. Can you hold that, and we could have that story right after the break, Laurie? It's coming up.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, and so we'll hear the owl story with your son. And how old was he?
He was 5.5.
5.5, huh? Well, that's a good age, 5.5. And so have owls been a part of your history a little bit yourself, or just that one experience?
No, there's been multiple experiences. Right up until just in the fall of last year was my last owl experience. Yeah.
Do you have people that bring you owls or owl things? Have you ever had that experience?
Actually, I have. I have a little owl wallet as well as some jewelry.
Well, yeah, because I know for myself, I had someone bring up a owl and gift me an owl wing, and so it's something like that, and you have to look at the non-coincidence of that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so do you? I don't want to really get into it because Patrick, we're right up for a break, right?
Yes, in about 50 seconds.
50 seconds, yeah. So when we get back from the break, everyone hold on to your seats and we'll listen to Laurie, and she will graciously tell us her story with her son and when he was 5.5 years old with the owl story. And then we'll also get into Laurie's work, her amazing research with consciousness and reality, and hopefully we'll have some time to talk about the Mandela effect and going through the back doors with the patent offices and alternate realities. So,
There you go.
okay, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
So we should probably not say that I went through the back door.
This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey, and welcome back to the Cosmic Oracle Show. And we want to thank you for being very generous this month. And we've already exceeded our donations that we need to keep freedomslips.com and Revolution Radio on the air. But if you'd like to continue to support us, we make it really easy for you. Just go ahead and go to that donate or support us button, either in the chat room. We do have a chat room with every show, or you can just go to freedomslips.com, press that donate button, and you can do a monthly support club. It's like $5, I think it is, for archives, isn't it, Patrick?
$4.99 a month for archives.
Yeah.
And you
we
can
make
subscribe.
hmm and you can make it really easy, pay through PayPal. You can buy heirloom seed packs that are still available.
Oh, yeah.
Those are awesome. And you can also buy a personal $5 chat room icon. And so we have a whole slew of ways that you can continue to give generously. We have some major bling, right?
Yeah,
Or
and I would add this. If you go to www.blacklightningwood.com, you will get to Nighthawk's special site where he shows you what he makes with wood. It is awesome. It is very pretty, amazing, excellent, and it makes great gifts as well as being very useful.
Awesome. So please continue to support us, and thank you for all of your support thus far. We really, really appreciate it, and we thank you in advance. And we have back with us today, after the break, we have Laurie McDonald. She is a hypnotherapist, researcher, and extraordinaire. And she has a company in Sacramento, TrueYouHypnotherapy.com. That's TrueYouHypnotherapy.com. And she's been a hypnotherapist there for many years. She's the new acting president of the nonprofit Opus. And she also is the founder and runs the Sacramento Alien Abduction and Contactee Support Group, one of the largest groups meetings in California. And so that's just, we could go on and on though. So I'm just going to bring you back on, Laurie.
Thank you.
Well, after you've been having experiences since 5, and then doing all of your work as a seeker of truth, and learning information, and then giving what you learn back to the public so that everyone can be healed and helped, and try and figure out what this phenomena is all about. Help wake us up and move us into that new reality.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to me that we are at a very monumental time in history, that we are on the path to ascension, and that ascension is an evolutionary spiritual step for the human population. Seems that, back in the Dark Ages, say between the year 600 and 611, people were really at their worst. They were doing medieval torture contraptions, and they were horrible. But right now, in the cosmology of the universe, we are ascending. We are moving up closer to the sun. We are subjected to a higher solar radiation that is allowing us to sort of reveal or allow us to see what might be a larger truth. Some people say this is the time of the apocalypse, and I say, well, most likely, but the true definition of apocalypse means to have knowledge revealed, or to even say have the veil lifted. So when we understand, the right terminology of the word and not the negative connotation that maybe the Hollywood propaganda has associated with it, we see that we're in a learning and enlightening time, and that it's almost our duty to create a path of larger understanding as we investigate why we are here, what it's all about, and what the purpose is. And I think that understanding has a lot to do with it. Understanding the words that we use, words like apocalypse, should know the meaning. Even the word human, the word human, the true definition is hue. It's an ancient word for light or saturation of light. And we use that today to measure light and hues. Man is short for manifestation, to be embodied or to come into the physical. So the human means a light embodied entity. It's just simply a definition for what we are. And when we begin to, piece these larger understandings of the words that we use together, we're beginning to see that we are evolving. And for those of us who are working in it, we can feel it.
Mm-hmm. And just by especially through meditation, is one of the keys that you use to kind of keep yourself centered when all this change is happening and when all this chaos is happening. This is the time of the Kali Yuga
Mm-hmm.
time. That's for Patrick, because we've talked about that on the show.
Yeah, it's 432,000 years. The thing is, though, we only started at 5,000 years ago, so we've got 426,000 years left of the Kali Yuga. That's not to say there won't be some bright spots, but it's something to think about.
Well, time is really relevant. When you look at math and how we create time, we can see that there is a very strange correlation between gravity and time. And that when we're subjected to gravity, we have the sense of time. So we're not entirely sure, or at least I'm not, how long this particular cycle has been sort of going, because many different cultures come at it from a different perspective. But I think the bottom line is that the commonality is that we are at the time of growth. That's really the best way to look at it. And with all growth, we're going to experience a few growing pains. We have to realize that those are circumstances, again, of the life and not the life. And so it's really how much energy we put into some of the things that appear to be, negative. Because the truth is, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And during that messy time, and that's what we're doing. We're scrambling, man. And we're going to come out an omelet. So it's attitude, and with a larger understanding of the words that we use. And when we begin to release things like time, and time, being measured linear is ridiculous, because that's really creates a stronger gravitational and emotional attachment.
And density, right? A density to that.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because if you look at the law of gravity, a mosquito shouldn't fly, a bumblebee shouldn't fly, because we're told that gravity's pulling us down, holding us down, in fact, so that we don't float aimlessly off the planet. Yeah, I think not. Because you can't apply that same math to a mosquito or a bumblebee or a fly, because by all rights, they should be being pulled down too, and they wouldn't have the force or thrust or propulsion to lift into flight. So there must be something else going on here. The universe as we know it is changing, and we can't look at it changing in metaphysical terms with extraterrestrials and spirituality and not look at the math having to change as well.
Mm-hmm. And so where we go, it's kind of the Native American or Native Indian, where we go together, right? All of us.
Well, we're hoping. Yeah.
I'm with that group, whatever that group is. I'm with that group,
Yeah, I mean, because that sounds absolutely great. But speaking of Native Americans, that just reminds me of the owl, and I'll get right back to that in a second.
Bringing it all around.
Yes. So the owl being related to the UFO abduction phenomena and to the contactee phenomena. When my son was about 5.5, he'll be 30 on April Fool's Day. Yeah. He was sitting out on the front lawn with myself. We were underneath a palm tree, and I was trying to help him develop. So I took his favorite little action figure and put it under a plastic red cup. I had 3 cups. And I sort of did like the shell game. And I told him, so I want you to tell me where your action figure is, but I don't want you to guess. There's no guessing. This is your toy. You play with this all the time. I want you to feel and feel for your toy. Just feel for it. Don't think, but feel. So, man, he was awesome. He was banging it out. He was like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. He was really getting it. And then all of a sudden, this huge white owl flies down from the tree and perches on like where a palm frond had been cut. And it watches this game go on. And I look up, Ryan looks up. We don't think, anything of it. We continue. Well, after that owl stayed with us for many years. It stayed with us until we relocated to New Mexico. I was there for a short time, finished. That's where I became a clinical hypnotherapist, and then moved back to California. But the owl had stayed with us. I was doing a lot of UFO research and investigation at the time. This was in the early 90s, and I would go and set up cameras around the outside Sacramento, and I would film the skies. I would check on the cameras, and every time I would go out, owl would follow me. If I went to the Lucky's grocery store, the owl would fly, follow the car, and be circling the grocery store until I drove away. He knew our car, he knew me. That owl stayed with us for years, and it was the most amazing thing. I could always count on it. And then as I was getting ready to move, obviously I was really freaked out. I didn't think that the owl could fly that far. What do I know about how far an owl can fly? And I was sitting out in the yard. I'd spent a lot of time in my backyard meditating under a specific tree that I happen to love. And feather fell out of the tree, floated down beside me. And I knew that when I picked up the feather, that was like a goodbye gift. I knew in my heart. I felt really sad. And I had rented out my house to a friend and made the trip to New Mexico. And we were there about a week or so, and got a call. And they said, "We're so sorry to tell you that your owl," like it's my owl.
It's your family. It's your family.
Had passed away. It had been laying in the backyard on its back with full wing spread. They said it was about 6 feet from wing to wingtip, and that they should let me know. And I'll have this, in my consciousness for the rest of my life. I mean, this owl was more than an owl, and I had a very strange and unique relationship with it. In fact, I read about it recently in the book The Messengers by Mike Clellan, and he put my story in under the name of Leslie, because when he wrote the book, I wasn't fully out of the extraterrestrial closet, so to speak. I'd always done my work, but never really went public with any of it. And in the second I did, it's really been nonstop, to be honest with you. But I had kept it quiet for a very long time. And when I did,
you have to kind of make it real to yourself first, right? And really feel it and know it and work it within you before you can start to give it away in some ways.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I'd worked with lots of experiencers, different walks of life, and still, it was very interesting. Yeah, so the owl really, really means a lot to me, and to this day, owls will come by and swoop me, right in Midtown. Midtown, Barbara.
Yeah, of course.
Right there on 27th and and
I know exactly where that is.
So I'm walking through Midtown, and I actually ducked forward, haunched forward, because I felt something flying towards me. It flew right over my head, landed on the sidewalk. Big owl looked me right in the face, and I had my dog sit, and my dog normally would have gone after that bird, and my dog sat quietly. I bent down, and I'm like, "Are you okay? Or something wrong with you?" And I'm looking at the bird, and I reached out to touch it, and it spread its wings and flew off. And I went, "Okay, so you're probably okay." I walked up, went around the corner. The bird flew at me this time and landed in front of me, but not on the sidewalk, on the grass. And, one of the only times I don't have a cell phone on me, I don't have a cell phone. So I see some guy smoking a cigarette and on the corner across the street. And I'm like, "Hey, do you have a cell phone?" He's like, "Yeah, I need to use it. Okay, come here." So I lured him right over. So he did. He came over and he gave me his phone. And I called the animal control. They put us through to a sanctuary. And honest to God, in under 10 minutes, there was a vehicle there that came and looked at the bird. and took it, and they said that they were going to make sure it was okay and then let it back out into the wild. And I think there was something wrong with its wing. It's what it
Mhm.
felt like. It was totally, I guess this bird could have stopped anyone, and maybe they wouldn't have took somebody's cell phone and called for help. But the bird, the beautiful owl, came to me, and I hope that I got it the help that it was looking for, But I have even just was walking on the outside of town on a little hike with my husband, and looked up, and there was an owl in the tree, and they're like a night bird, they're not generally out during the day, and came out,
Well,
and I was,
they're not in Midtown Sacramento with all the high-rise buildings and the hustle bustle of business downtown.
yeah.
You don't put owl and Midtown Sacramento in the same sentence,
I think just birds uh, and animals seem to like me. Birds often come. I think I have a new friend, a bluebird, comes and sits outside my home office, right where I can see it on the deck out there all the time. I mean, yeah. So I don't know if it's because of the owl, because I'd never felt such an affinity really with birds up until then, but certainly it meant something.
Mhm. Well, and it has something to do with your awareness. It's in your field, right? So it's like hello, or just an attention for sure. It's really a beautiful story.
Yeah, I think it is. Like I said, it'll stay with me really for the rest of my life. I can't help but think that that whole situation is just completely special.
Hmm. It feels like that. I'm sure our listeners are feeling that right now too, because
That's
we communicate in feelings too, right? We and communicate in pictures, and there is no time limit to that. There is no A to Z to that. So I'm feeling it. I'm sure all of our listeners are feeling that. So.
Yeah, there's no time, and there's no language, no, the subconscious or the spirit world doesn't speak English or French or any other language. It's all, through image of telepathy. Yeah, a picture says 1,000 words, and our emotions is, energy in motion. Our emotions, when balanced and beautiful, definitely sing through the universe. There's no doubt about that, and they can attract things. And I, truth is, everything that's ever happened in my entire life, all of it, good, the bad, I've always just been happy, especially in nature. With the I could probably be quite fine living alone in the woods, and not have a problem, because I do feel such a connection to the earth herself. I feel deeply grounded in our planet, kind of like a tree, deeply rooted, but forever aspiring into the light. Kind of, I feel like an unfolding all the time. And I think nature propagates such healthy feelings.
It does. Nature's quite the teacher if we listen and take time, right?
Yeah.
We get so busy sometimes. I do have to back up a minute. And did you say your son's name was Ryan? Is
Yes.
so is my son. And so
Oh,
I have a son named Ryan McDonald.
oh, really?
Yes. So we
That's
have a
crazy.
No, I'm related.
Oh,
Yeah, and he was born in 1977.
oh, mine's 87.
Okay, 1977. So yeah. Yeah, it's Ryan James McDonald in
Wow.
Sacramento.
Wow. Yeah. Well, my Ryan is in San Diego. Here's a little shout out. He's in a hip hop. I don't know what they call it. I don't know if they're bands, but he's a headliner and plays all over San Diego and Ocean Beach, and that's Cool Beef Productions. So if you want some really cool music, head down to the beach.
Oh, yeah, I have lots of friends in San Diego. That sounds cool. That is awesome. Yeah, my son is in LA. So, yeah, I actually live with my son and daughter-in-law. So, it's
Oh,
really
nice.
I love it. It's wonderful. So, I would like to start talking a little bit about you in our conversation before the show, you were really into the Mandela effect. Would you like to talk about that a little bit? Does that sound like something you'd like to
Yeah,
talk
happy
about?
to. Sure. The Mandela effect, for the listeners who aren't aware of it, is a theory being put out that we have an alternative universe, a separate timeline, as if the planet Earth herself is one of many planet Earths. And so the theory is that CERN created a major particle collider, and in doing so, their intention was to recreate the conditions after the Big Bang, and to have a look at that right after. So some people are thinking that they created a tear in the fabric of reality, and that there may in fact be a convergence or a bleed through to a parallel world, an alternative reality. And so in looking at this, however it might sound initially, we see that there is two different histories on our planet right now. You can ask people how many people were in the car when JFK was assassinated. And some people will tell you there were 4. Some people will tell you there were 6. Both sets of people can provide footage to show that there were 2. In fact, the film footage that shows 6 people in the car also slowed down between frames at 1 second each, between frame 237 and 249. It looks like Jackie has a gun. And that when he pulls his head down, it looks like she shoots him, then drops the gun behind him, and then continues to crawl over the back of the vehicle. So this footage has been verified as authentic. So it's a little bit mind-blowing. But then, okay, so that aside, there are other major changes, like movie lines, iconic movie lines like Star Wars, or if you're familiar with that movie, there's a line in it where he says, "Luke, I am your father." Well, if you have that DVD, play it. It no longer says that. Now, this isn't digital enhancement. This isn't redoing the movie. There are no changes, because this would be your own DVD, one that you've had in your possession for a long time. I can tell you, people, you put that in and you play it, it now says, "No, I am your father." Then the movie Field of Dreams, another iconic line, it was, "Build it and they will come." And then they showed like this long stream of headlights, and they were coming. And then the baseball players came out of the cornfield. Anyway, it now says, "Build it and he will come." So there's multiple things. A TV show that was popular a while back, it was called Sex in the City.
I remember that one.
Yeah. Well, that never existed in our timeline. There's never been a show anywhere in this timeline, in our reality, called Sex in the City. It is now called, and always has been, Sex and the City, which actually really doesn't make sense. So we go back, you can look and research. I've been able to find footage that shows Sarah Jessica Parker winning Best Actress for Sex in the City, which I posted in the Mandela Effect room in Facebook. I like to post a lot of my evidence so that people can have a look at it. And people definitely remember Sex in the City. And then there's a group of people say, "No, in my timeline, it was always Sex and the City." Now, then there's the product changes. For me, when I was pregnant with both the kids, I super craved Captain Crunch. And I craved Captain, Captain Crunch, Captain Crunch cereal. I ate it by the box load. Turned out I had low blood sugar while I was pregnant, and that's why I was craving it. So I ate it just by the box all the time. Loved it. And now it's Cap'n, C-A-P' Crunch. And if you go into Logopedia, which is one of my research resources, logopedia.com will indicate that there has never been Captain Crunch breakfast cereal, except that when I got into the United States Patent Office, I was able to find the registered trademark and patent number for the breakfast cereal, Captain Crunch, the way that I remember it. Now, this is a registered trademark. They're not going to spell it wrong. Also, another one that really upset the general public was the product air freshener Febreze. Are you familiar with that product? Mm-hmm. Febreze. Can you spell that product?
Yeah, Febreze, Febreeze.
Yeah, not in our timeline, Barbara. Never has it been that. In our timeline, it's because before I say what it is, the commercials used to be ocean breeze in the background, like a sheet or a towel on a clothesline, Febreze. You would get the ocean breeze, and now it's Febreze, Febreze. Always has been. Not a change on Logopedia. No changes. Deep into the patent office, through the company Procter & Gamble, I did find Febreze. Yeah, that's right. Febreze is how it has been spelled. So these are what we refer to as Mandela effects. But let me blow your mind here just a little bit. If I haven't already, I absolutely am a sky watcher. I've been interested in astronomy and the cosmology of the universe. I've studied a little math related to astrophysics to broaden and deepen my understanding of the universe. That Carl Sagan was a hero of mine. And I remember I posted this video for other people to see the research. Also, I like to post my research. Carl Sagan says, he shows the spiral Milky Way galaxy, and he shows the outer rim of that galaxy, and that's called the Sagittarius Arm, and you are here. We live in the outskirts of the Milky Way galaxy on the Sagittarius Arm. I've heard him say it 100 times. Now, if you Google that information or go through any other sources, although I don't recommend Google, I prefer going on the dark net, you're going to see that we are now in the Orion Spur. It's not even a full arm. We're in the Orion Spur of the Milky Way. That's right, the Orion Spur. How is that possible when other astrophysicists like Carl Sagan have always indicated that we are in the Sagittarius Arm? So looking at it as if the Milky Way galaxy was an old record album, right on the middle of the first track, that's where we have always been. Now, in the center where you would drop the LP onto the player, we are in between the center and the middle. There's just no possible way that we could have moved that many light years in our lifetime. So being in two different places in the Milky Way, seeing two different timelines, the changing spelling of some stars' names, such as, do you remember a movie called Smokey and the Bandit back in the 80s?
Sure.
Could you know who starred in that?
I can see him.
Burt Reynolds.
That's right, Burt Reynolds.
And
I have no idea.
Patrick?
No, I'm not a movie watcher. Never have been. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, a lot of people remember that it was Burt Reynolds and Sally Fields.
Right.
Sally Fields. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember. I think they were married.
Who is it?
Yeah, but you know what? Her name isn't Sally Fields and never has been.
What is it now?
Now it's Sally Field.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, here's an interesting tidbit.
Oh, yeah.
Sally Field, or Sally Field's brother, is one of the top scientists at CERN. One of the other Mandela effects that we see is the change in her historic acceptance speech of, you like me, you really, really like me. Okay, now that no longer exists. That's been changed. Now, there's been a million parodies, so it was easy to find old comedy shows that were doing that. But yeah, no, it's way tamed down in this reality. So,
well, can you say that it's maybe changed because of all the information we have now, and at those times there wasn't that much information available, and now we have the information available? That's the only way my mind is wrapping around all of this.
Okay, well, all right. This is what I think, all right? Mm-hmm. I think that there's most likely always been a flux between parallel universes, and that there's always been a bit of a bleed through that we haven't really noticed it because it's only within the last 100 years that the majority of the Earth population could actually read and write. The majority of the population for the years up until then were not capable of reading or writing or noticing a spelling difference or the name change. But what was that?
Illiterate.
Yeah, we were illiterate. And that was on purpose. I mean, with women in particular, their education was always less, certainly in the arts, reading and math. So, and then that was when we were even allowed to speak in church. You know, we couldn't teach spirituality. So yeah, there's been a lot of limitations, but right now we don't have any of those. But what I'm thinking is that we are experiencing a consciousness shift, that we have a choice here. This is how it's going to go down. We can find ourselves on the spiritual path to ascension. In my opinion, that's a spiral that moves up into the heavens. That's how I've seen it. That's how I experienced it with my own spiritual experiences. Or we can allow ourselves to be weighed down by the emotional density of the third dimension and get time looped back into an alternative reality where the human soul, instead of ascending, gets put back on an alternative reality, which could go on indefinitely, where the human energy that is manipulated by perhaps the Archon extraterrestrials that may be running the program. You know, we are seeing that physicists are telling us that the universe is made up of ones and zeros, which is basically computer code, that there is an algorithm within the universe, and that the universe is made up not like computer code, but is computer code. So does this indicate that we are a simulation? It could to some people, though I like to look at it as maybe the part of our reality is simulated and part of it is not. And so we have to take a good look at our environment to see how much of our environment is authentic. And that's the time that we live in right now.
And so our greatest challenge is maybe to challenge everything, because we've been told so many lies, right? I mean,
Yeah,
and been conditioned.
Question everything. Question everything. Research the definitions of words that you use and see what they mean so that you understand what you're saying. Try to say what you mean and mean what you say, and try to create some type of self-acceptance and love, so that when you can totally accept yourself, you know, you can really accept just about anyone. And that's the way it's supposed to be. When you have self-acceptance and self-love, nobody makes you feel inferior, and nobody can make you feel superior. And with that, we're actually creating the reality that we want. We begin to take responsibility, and we create the reality that we want our children and grandchildren to live in. And I believe that the human condition, that the human species itself, I believe that we are magnificent, powerful co-creators, in that we possess creator energy, in that we can create the reality that we want once we understand and have that self-mastery and self-actualization of our own reality. But prior to getting there, there are a whole lot of questions that we're going to have to answer. And we might have to review everything that we've ever been taught, right down to perhaps how far the moon is, how far the sun is. We have to take another look at the cosmology of our planet and see if it adds up to what we were taught in our youth. Because in our youth, all we did was just absorb what everybody said. If they said the earth was round, the earth was round. If they told us the earth was square, the earth would have been square. We never really investigated that or pushed the borders of their research to find out what is going on. You detach for a second and look at the earth and what's happening on it right now. We have this big buzz at Antarctica.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, there's a huge buzz at Antarctica, and for the last little while, heads of state and very important people have been going there. You know, why? What's so great about that? Well, obviously, one of the reasons is the inner Earth opening that was supposedly found by Admiral Byrd Admiral Byrd also said he came up to an invisible wall that was partially covered by snow, and that some of his planes flew right into it because they couldn't see it, and they crashed as if there was an invisible wall there. He said he could see beyond that at one point, and it looked like a large mass of land as big as the continent of North America that he couldn't get to. That he even says in an interview that this is unexplored. It's the last place on the planet to explore, and that's that continent. Some of the questions that come up about this continent and this landmass is how come we're not seeing it with GPS, global positioning satellites, which should indicate where we are on the Earth. Well, part of the problem with the GPS system is that there's a whistleblower who's recently come out saying that there is no satellites, there are no GPS system, that this is actually being faked, that what it is, it's a land signals, and that you see them in the massive high the massive powerful cell phone towers, that a lot of these are sending that satellite signal. And he actually drew it a graph as how it could bounce off. What he's saying is it looks like, and Admiral Byrd was the first one to indicate this, that there might be a dome over the planet Earth, which then they're saying would change the shape of the Earth. And so we have heard other physicists say that
it wouldn't be the flat line, the flat Earth, right? Are you a flat earther or?
Well, I'm not. I'm a researcher of everything. Mm-hmm. And so I try not to label myself anything like that. But I would say that I would be open and to recalculating the math and to doing some of the experiments that would show us that it is a flat Earth. And it wouldn't be the first time. In fact, people did believe that the Earth was flat right up until Christopher Columbus around the 1700s set off on his expeditions. And truth is, during those, he had major UFO sightings. And those are recorded in the actual ship's logs of what happened back then. Actually, it wasn't. It was the 1400s, 1490 or so, I believe it is. So
92.
1492. Thank you. I knew I said that wrong. So yeah, absolutely. They did believe that the Earth was flat, and they believed that for a very specific reason. They believed that because they were taught that through their religious beliefs. And at that time, and in the Bible today, it still indicates that where you read in multiple verses that there's a dome under the firmament, and that firmament separates the waters of the heavens from the earth. And so there are many biblical passages. And, you know, the Bible, bibliography means history of, so it doesn't always have a super religious or holy context as they would like. You know, there's a lot of just history in it. So if you look at it as a history book and then begin to check out those references, we see that it was indicated for a very long time by some very smart people who said that's what it was. And then all of a sudden there was a shift in thinking. And then people said, well, how can the Earth be flat? Every time we look up, we see round spheres. And so that would make us round too. Well, there's some logic to that, unless you're a billiards table and you look up and all the balls are round. So it's not going to apply to everything. Yeah.
Right.
So
right. I love talking about it and questioning it, though. I think it's important that we take it and put it out on the table and link everyone up. So, and can we talk a little bit about alternative realities? I mean, that where thought goes, energy flows, right?
Right. Where thought goes, energy flows. Yes, we know our energy feeds and creates our reality.
Mm-hmm. And so we could use that information not only personally, but also as a group consciousness again. You know, that we're the consciousness of not only us, but the cosmos itself, and being a part of that. I see that's where we're growing up or going into in some ways, that reality of being there and playing a part of that.
Right. Well, our thoughts are very important, but here's the thing about our thoughts. We have to be able to differentiate our thoughts from others, our thoughts from thoughts that might be transmitted to us. They come in our own voice, and the military has created what's called a voice to skull transmission. And you can have a beam, this is their technology, can beam a thought into you, and you can feel as if that was your own thought. And often they're self-defeating thoughts that prevent you from saying or speaking what you need to.
And so again, it takes us back to finding yourself in that self-center, and meditation is one of your keys. I believe that's one of the keys to to being that self-centered, so you truly know who you are, so that if you can distinguish between and among all those things that are coming at you to tell you who you are
Well,
instead of
yeah.
knowing who you are.
Well, yes, and it's even bigger than that. When we meditate, we increase the gamma brainwave. The gamma brainwave allows us to have clarity. It allows us to tap into, we have up to 19 senses. Ask any neurologist, Google this yourself. Again, they told you had 5, perhaps 6, and that was a huge, question as to whether we even had 6 senses. But we know now that we have up to 19. And when you tap into the gamma wave aspect of your own brain, you do have more clarity to be able to differentiate what's real to you and what's not.
And so it could give you more power than, like you're talking about, when an intruder does come into your room at night and you don't want them there, that you do have some power to help change that.
Well, you do. I think that when you're empowered and understanding that you can scan into your environment and feel anomalies, you'll be able to sense when somebody or something is in your personal environment, and you can shut them down. You don't have to interact. Everything is resonance, and everything is a two-way street with energy. We have to comply. And if we don't specifically say no, then we're complying. Unless you state no, then you're complying with whatever abduction scenario or whatever else might be unfolding at that time.
Well, I think it's important to take a look at it, right? Because we all change, grow, and evolve and get new information every moment. And so we're changing and evolving, and so kind of update the program with your experience with ET UFO phenomena.
Yeah, a lot of the UFOs that people are seeing, we are at that point now in questioning whether it's extraterrestrial or interdimensional. And that's really one of the bigger questions. And this, again, it takes us into a split way of viewing the situation. And it's actually probably quite healthy. The more questions we can ask about everything should be challenged. And then with that, we're able to decipher logically what we think is right. That's really all it is, but a lot of people are afraid to question. They're afraid to ask the questions if it has anything to do with extraterrestrials or any changes on the earth or how we view the earth. People are afraid to ask these questions because they think that there might be some negative ramifications or consequences for such things, because that's what we're told. But you see that that's another form of manipulating people and keeping them in that fear base and not allowing them to find the truth. And, truth or no truth, it doesn't matter. What we're being denied is the ability to question and investigate. And that, to me, is our right.
And to be kept in a box.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I mean, when we're limited with our particular belief systems, Yeah, they'll keep you trapped. And if you're fear trapped, you're never going to open that box.
And moving into the more feminine side, the more feminine empowerment, that it's more of a where we learn how to sit with mystery, right?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. There is this an amazing divine feminine energy, which actually is part of the workshops that I do myself with Holly Marie. She's a shamanic practitioner, and we do divine feminine energy workshops to help women step into that power so that they can feel healed, whole, and be strong and confident completely alone within their own mind or in their own energy or in their own life without feeling insecure or needy in certain areas. And the divine feminine energy isn't only for women, it's for men too. Yeah, make no mistake. Yeah, men are capable of receiving this divine feminine energy too. So these workshops using this specific energy of that goddess energy they're extraordinarily powerful.
And to relax as a spirit in that body, right? Just to relax in this body.
Barbara, y'all have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the goal is to be at ease in your mind and in your body. And when you're comfortable in your own skin and you're at ease in the mind and body, you're able to take your next steps with empowerment. And so one of the little techniques that I like to help people tap into that specific power is to place their hands on their solar plexus chakra, about 2 inches above the navel. And then as you sit there and envisioning the growth of the solar plexus in this beautiful, bright, clean, brilliant yellow, sun yellow, as it grows, you ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And then as you sit with this, the answer effervescently bubbles up into the conscious mind. You see it without reacting to it, leaving the hands on the solar plexus. You ask yourself, what is my next empowered step? And as you sit with that, again, the answers effervescently come into the conscious mind, and you know how to calmly proceed in life, where you have the circumstances of life or fears of life in perspective and you move forward. It's amazing work. We do it from the approach of alchemical hypnotherapy, and alchemy, of course, is the art of transformation. And with Holly Marie, she does soul journey work, and she's a shamanic practitioner. And part of the retreat, I participated in her soul journey and just had the most amazing experience. Was able to integrate even a deeper part of myself. So this is great work. And we have another one coming up, actually, July 28th through the 31st at Mount Shasta. We have rented out the Flowing Waters Retreat, the Namaste House, and the Kuan Yin Home. And we'll be taking a dozen or so women to the next Divine Feminine Energy retreat.
Fantastic. And they can reach you at True Hypnotherapy.
Hypnotherapy.com, or feel free to check us out at femininegoddessretreats.com. Check out that website that has information on our upcoming retreats and our past ones. You can also follow me on Twitter at Laurie's True You, and on Facebook at True You Hypnotherapy. I have a page there.
Fantastic. And you'll also be speaking at the Awareness Life Expo coming up April 7th through the 9th in Cottonwood, Arizona.
That's right. I'm very happy to be doing that. I'm going to be speaking on From Contact to Ascension. I'll be doing a workshop on that as well. And then I'll be doing another workshop on how to integrate your extraterrestrial experience.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you for being on our show today. It's been a wonderful ride. We've been just kind of all over the cosmos and back and through, and now we're back down again. So everyone can enjoy the rest of their day, their evening, from whatever part of the world or cosmos that you're tuning into. And thanks again. I look forward to seeing you at the Awareness Life Expo as well,
I'm
Laurie,
excited.
meeting you.
I'm
For
very
the first
excited
time.
about that. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah. It will. It will. And thank you again, Patrick, for being like the most spot on producer, keeping us here today.
Well, you're welcome, Barbara.
And you have your show is when?
It's on Thursday at noon Eastern on Studio A. It's not for public consumption with Patrick English.
Fantastic. And then also you can check out my website, barbarajeanlindsey.com, and also on Facebook, Barbara Jean Lindsey as well. And we also have a new Facebook page, The Cosmic Oracle Show. So check us out. And next week we will be having Magenta Pixie will be our guest next week. And I'm really looking forward to having her on the show. So take care, everyone, and live the life you imagine, and we'll see you next week. Thanks again.
Week.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Laurie.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. Okay, so be signing off.
Bye.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.